24th Rose, Mother Teresa's Rosary. Jim Castle, a 45-year-old management consultant, boarded his plane in Cincinnati, Ohio, tired after a week-long series of business meetings and seminars. He sank gratefully into his seat, ready for the flight home to Kansas City. As more passengers entered, suddenly people fell silent. Jim turned his head to see what was happening, and his mouth dropped open. Walking up the aisle were two nuns, clad in simple white habits with blue border. He recognized the familiar face of one at once, the wrinkled skin, the eyes warmly intent. This was a face he had seen in TV and on the cover of the Time magazine. The two nuns halted, and Jim realized that his seat companion was going to be Mother Teresa of Kolkata. As the last few passengers settled in, Mother Teresa and her companion pulled out rosaries. Mother turned toward him and enquired, "Young man, do you pray the rosary often?" "No, not really," he admitted. She took his hand, while her eyes probed his. Then she smiled and said, "Well, you will now." And she dropped her rosary into his palm. An hour later, Jim entered the Kansas City airport, where he was greeted by his wife Ruth. "What in the world?" Ruth asked when she noticed the rosary in his hand. They kissed and Jim described his encounter. Driving home, he said, "I feel as if I met a true sister of God." 9 months later, Jim and Ruth visited Connie, a friend of theirs, for several years. Connie shared the sad news that she had been diagnosed with a malignant ovarian cancer. "The doctor says it's a tough case," said Connie, "but I am going to fight it. I won't give up." Jim clasped her hand, then reaching into his pocket, took out Mother Teresa's rosary and gently twined it around her fingers. He told her the story in the aeroplane and said, "Keep it with you, Connie. It may help." Although Connie wasn't Catholic, her hand closed willingly around the small plastic beads. "Thank you," she whispered. "I hope I can return it." More than a year passed before Jim saw Connie again. This time, face glowing, she hurried toward him and handed him the rosary. "I carried it with me all the year through," she said. "I've had surgery and then been on chemotherapy too. Last month the doctors did a second test and the tumor's gone completely." Her eyes met Jim's. "I knew it was time to give the rosary back." In the fall of 1987, Ruth's sister Liz fell into a deep depression after her divorce. She asked Jim if she could borrow the rosary, and when he sent it, she hung it over her bedpost in a small velvet bag. "At night I held on to it, just physically held on. I was so lonely and afraid," she says. "Yet when I gripped that rosary, I felt as if I held a loving hand." Gradually, Liz pulled her life together and she mailed the rosary back. "Someone else may need it," she said. Then one night in 1988, a stranger telephoned Ruth. She had heard about the rosary from a neighbor and asked if she could borrow it for her mother lying in coma in the ICU. The family hoped the rosary might help their mother die peacefully. A few days later, the woman returned the beads. "The nurses told me a coma patient can still hear," she said. "So I explained to my mother that I had Mother Teresa's rosary and that when I gave it to her, she could let go. It would be all right. Then I put the rosary in her hand. Right away, we saw her face relax. The lines smoothed out until she looked so peaceful, so young." The woman's voice caught. A few minutes later, she was gone. Fervently she gripped Ruth's hand. "Thank you." Jim realized that his own life was changed for better radically after his unexpected meeting on the airplane and the rosary he received. Each decade of the beads was of a different color, Jim recalled. The decades represented various areas of the world, Mother Teresa had told him, and had added, "I pray for the poor and dying on each continent."
May Almighty God bless you. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. In God's day by day.